The sharp, metallic click of the deadbolt sliding home was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was followed by the jangle of keys being pulled out of the lock from the other side. My side, the inside, was now a smooth, useless metal plate. "You'll rot in here," my son screamed. His voice was muffled by the thick oak of the front door, but his rage was so potent, so toxic, it felt like it was seeping through the wood. "Darius!" I yelled, my hands flying to the doorknob, twisting the useless handle. "Darius, don't you dare! You open this door. You had your chance, old woman," his voice, fainter now as he walked away. "You had your chance to sign the papers. Now you can sit in that empty house and think about your mistake." Before we descend into this tale of betrayal and desperate survival, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. You'll want to be here for the resolution of this one, and you don't want to miss the new stories of justice we bring you every single day. Hit that subscribe button, and let's begin. Empty house. He was right. He and his wife, Talia, had already been here. They hadn't just visited, they had plundered. My pantry was bare. My refrigerator was empty, the door left cruelly ajar, its little light shining on barren, white plastic shelves. They had even taken the last of the toilet paper. And then, the final, chilling sound, the scrape of the heavy, iron security gate being pulled shut and the definitive snap of a new padlock. I was not just locked in. I was caged. My name is Josephine Hayes. I am 65 years old, a widow, and until my retirement last year, I was a senior compounding pharmacist. My life has been one of precision, of careful measures, of understanding that the wrong ingredient, even in a microscopic dose, can be a deadly poison. I had spent 40 years of my life creating remedies to heal people. I had no idea I had raised the poison itself. Darius and Talia had become cold, but I had mistaken it for the simple, self-absorbed nature of youth. I was wrong. It wasn't self-absorption, it was a deep, calculated greed. They saw me, a retired professional with a paid-off house and a substantial pension, not as a mother, but as an obstacle. A bank to be drained. And now, they had found their final solution. "The developers won't wait, Ma." Darius had shrieked at me an hour earlier, his face a mask of purple rage. He and his partners were in some new, high-risk property venture, and he needed capital. He needed my house. He had shoved a stack of papers at me, a power of attorney and a quitclaim deed. "I will not," I had said, my voice quiet but firm. "This was your father's house." That's when he snapped. That's when he, with a strength I never knew he possessed, grabbed my phone from my hand and shoved me back inside. "You'll rot in here." Now, in the suffocating silence, the hook wasn't just a discovery. It was a sentence. He had locked me inside of the house without food. The counterattack wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. I am a scientist. I do not panic. I analyze. I went to the sink. The water ran. Good. He was an amateur. He was cruel, but he was sloppy. He hadn't thought to shut off the water main. He had assumed I would die of dehydration before anyone noticed I was gone. I checked the landline. Dead. The cord was cut. My cell phone. Gone. I was alone. Trapped. But I was alive. And I was furious. I spent the first few hours checking every window. Every single one was barred, part of the high-end security system my late husband, Frank, had installed years ago. Darius had been so clever. He had used my own fortress against me. As the sun began to set, the chill of the house set in, and a new, more primal fear arrived: hunger. The gnawing emptiness in my stomach was a terrifying clock, ticking down. I was a 65-year-old woman. How long could I last? 3 days? A week, with water? I refused to let that be the end of my story. I needed 2 things, a weapon, and an escape. Both, I knew, were in the basement. Frank's workshop. I had barely been down there since he passed. The door at the end of the kitchen was heavy. I opened it, the smell of sawdust, old oil, and memory washing over me. I flicked the light switch. The single bare bulb illuminated the cluttered, sacred space. Tools lined the walls. Crowbars, hammers, saws. Good. I could try to pry the bars from the windows. But as I scanned the room, my eyes landed on something else. Something new. In the far corner, where Frank's old fly fishing gear used to be, stood a new, 8-foot-tall metal storage locker. It was a heavy-duty, commercial-grade unit, secured not with a simple padlock, but with a thick, high-security clasp and a heavy-duty lock. It was Darius's. I had seen him and his partners install it 3 months ago. Just storing some files, Ma, he had said. Old business records. Don't worry about it. I had never worried. Now, I was obsessed. What he didn't know, the basement held his mistake. My hands, the steady hands of a pharmacist, trembled, but not with fear. With adrenaline. He had locked me in. He had left me to starve. He had assumed I was a frail, helpless old woman. He had forgotten who I was. I am a scientist. I am a woman who understands chemical reactions. I didn't need the crowbar. Not for this lock. On Frank's shelf, covered in dust, were his old chemistry sets and soldering supplies. I found a container of nitric acid, used for cleaning circuit boards. I found a small container of something else. Carefully, I took a glass beaker. I measured. I mixed. My compounding skills, dormant for a year, came roaring back. I created a small, fizzing, highly corrosive compound. I applied it to the lock's mechanism. The metal hissed. It smoked. The smell was acrid. After 10 minutes, I took Frank's heaviest hammer and struck the lock. It didn't just break. It fell apart, the metal softened to putty. I pulled open the heavy steel door. It was not files. It was not old business records. The locker was filled, floor to ceiling, with medical-grade, temperature-controlled coolers. Stacked neatly. Labeled with codes I didn't recognize. This was not a business. This was a stash. I opened the first cooler. A blast of cold, vaporous air hit my face. Inside, nestled in custom foam, were dozens of silver-topped vials and small, foil-wrapped packets. I picked one up. My blood turned to ice. I knew exactly what this was. These were not street drugs. This was far, far bigger. These were experimental, unapproved, black market pharmaceuticals. Specifically, a new class of cognitive-enhancing nootropics, so potent and so dangerous they had been banned from even clinical trials. And next to them, vials of something else. A quick-acting, untraceable neurotoxin. My pharmacist's brain, my analytical mind, put the pieces together. The developers Darius was in with, they weren't property developers. They were a biotech smuggling ring. My son, my foolish, greedy, desperate son, was not just an investor. He was their mule. He was storing millions of dollars of contraband in his mother's basement. This was his mistake. He had locked me in a cage with his entire criminal enterprise. He had given me a weapon. And he had given me my phone. Wait. My phone? He took my cell phone. The one I kept in my purse. He didn't know about the other one. I ran back upstairs, my heart hammering. In my nightstand, in my late husband's old valet box, was his old, first-generation smartphone. I had kept it charged, just to look at the photos. It was old. It was slow. But I had connected it to my home Wi-Fi just last month. Darius had cut the landline. He had never, in his arrogant, sloppy haste, thought to cut the internet. I powered it on. The screen glowed. Connected. I had no food. I had no way out. But I had a line to the outside world. And I was sitting on top of a multi-million-dollar mistake that was probably desperate to be collected. I let a day pass. I let the hunger sharpen my focus. I let the fear turn to ice. Then, I crafted my message. I went to the basement. I took a clear, damning photo, the open cooler, the stacks of vials, my own steady, 65-year-old hand resting on the toxic inventory. I opened my email. I sent it to Darius. The subject line, inventory issue. The message, Darius, I found your inventory. You are incredibly sloppy. Your temperature-controlled storage is failing, by the way. The toxin vials are starting to sweat. I'm not a logistics expert, but I'd say you have about 1 hour before the entire batch is compromised. P.S. I am very, very hungry. I hit send. And I waited. 20 minutes later, I heard it. A car, not just pulling up, but skidding to a halt outside. A car door slamming. The sound of a key, fumbling, frantic, at the new padlock on the gate. The sound of my son, screaming in blind panic. The sound of the key in the heavy-duty padlock was not a click, it was a frantic, metallic scratch. The security gate shrieked on its hinges, followed by the sound of the front door being thrown open so hard it slammed against the interior wall. Darius came rushing back in a blind panic. He wasn't alone. Talia was right behind him, her face a mask of pale, terrified fury. They didn't look for me. They didn't call out, "Ma, are you okay?" They thundered past the living room, their eyes fixed on the basement door. I was waiting for them. I was standing at the top of the basement stairs, blocking the entrance. I held a single, foil-wrapped packet in one hand and one of the small, silver-topped vials in the other. My stance was not aggressive, it was clinical. They stopped dead at the sight of me. They looked like two rabid animals brought up short by a tranquilizer gun. "Move," Darius hissed, his voice a low, desperate growl. He was breathing hard, sweat beading on his forehead. "Get out of the way, Ma." "I don't think so," I said. My voice was calm, and I was surprised to find it didn't tremble. The hunger, the fear, it had all burned away, leaving only a cold, hard clarity. "You were right, Darius. The temperature is unstable down there. That old locker isn't ventilated. I can already smell the chemical precursors degrading. The aconitum derivatives are particularly volatile." Talia's eyes widened. "What is she talking about? What's aconitum?" "She's bluffing," Darius snapped at her, but his eyes were locked on the vial in my hand. He knew I wasn't. He knew I was a pharmacist. I had named the active ingredient in the toxin. "Am I?" I asked. I held up the foil packet. "This is L927. A fourth-generation nootropic. Banned by every global health organization. And this," I held up the vial, "is a fast-acting neurotoxin, designed, I assume, to be the antidote or perhaps the punishment for the people you supply. It's a binary system. Very clever. Very, very illegal." "Give me the vial, Ma," Darius said, taking a step forward. "No," I said, my voice hardening. "You will stay at the bottom of the stairs. You will not come near me. And you will listen. Because you are no longer in charge of this situation. I am." "You think you can stop us?" Talia shrieked, her composure cracking. "You're a frail old woman. We'll just push you down the stairs." "You could," I agreed, letting a small, cold smile touch my lips. "But I am a 65-year-old woman with a minor heart condition. If I were to, say, be startled and accidentally drop this vial, the glass would break. The toxin is airborne. This whole house would become a hazmat zone. You'd be dead before you made it back to your car. And your precious inventory? It would be compromised. The entire batch, worthless." I let the words hang in the empty, silent house. I had created a perfect, hermetically sealed stalemate. I was the chemical trigger, and I was holding my hand over the detonator. Darius's face, which had been purple with rage, was now a sickly, pale green. He knew. He finally, truly, understood. He had locked me in a cage with the only thing that mattered to him, and in doing so, he had made me the zookeeper. "What do you want?" he finally whispered, the fight draining out of him. "Money? You want the money?" "I am not you, Darius," I said, my voice dripping with contempt. "I don't want your money. I want to understand why. Why my own son, my flesh and blood, would lock his mother in her own home to starve to death. Why he would throw away his life to become a common, what are you? A drug mule?" The hidden secret suspense was about to break. Darius's face crumpled. It wasn't with remorse. It was with the terror of a man in a much deeper trap than I had ever built. "You don't understand," he babbled, his hands shaking. It's not a venture. It's a debt. Talia, her family, they're not old money, Ma. They're something else. They got us into this. We didn't make a profit on that first deal. We lost the shipment. And now, we owe them. We don't just owe them money, Ma. We owe them the product. This in the basement, it's not ours. It's theirs. And they are coming to collect it. Tomorrow." So, that was it. The developers were his wife's family. A criminal organization. And my son was just a terrified, stupid, mid-level pawn who had been caught. His shriek about rotting in here wasn't just rage, it was the desperate, pathetic projection of his own impending fate. They said if we didn't have the product," Talia whimpered, sinking onto the bottom step, "they would take the house. They said they'd take everything. We needed the deed, Josephine. We were going to sign it over to them to pay the debt. So you locked me in here to die," I stated, the final piece clicking into place. "Hoping that in my absence, the power of attorney you faked would be enough to transfer the deed and save your own skins. You would trade my life for yours. It wasn't supposed to be like this." Darius yelled, his voice cracking with pathetic self-pity. "It never is," I said. "But it is. And now, you have two problems. You have them, and you have me. And trust me when I tell you, I am the one you should be terrified of right now." I held the vial up to the light. "So here is what is going to happen. This is my private victory. This is my negotiation. And my terms are not negotiable. First," I said, "you will go into the kitchen. You will find your cell phone. You will place it on the top step, slide it over to me, and then return to the bottom of the stairs. I will not have this conversation unarmed." Darius, his eyes dark but his body defeated, did exactly as he was told. He retrieved his phone, placed it gently on the top step, and retreated. I slid it over with my foot. "Second," I continued, "you will call your partners. You will tell them the truth. That the inventory is here, but that it is currently under the control of a third party. You will tell them that this third party, me, is a highly trained pharmacist who knows exactly what this is, and who will destroy the entire shipment, and contact the federal authorities, if any harm comes to me. You will arrange a meeting. Not here. Not in my home. But at your office. Tonight." I can't do that," Darius stammered. "They'll kill me." "They will definitely kill you if you show up tomorrow with no product," I countered. "This is your only move. You will portray me as a professional, a new player who wants to negotiate her fee for the storage you so foolishly outsourced. Your partners will understand that language. Greed, they understand. A mother's love? Clearly, you don't." Talia was sobbing. Darius was just a hollow shell. "Third," I said, my voice dropping. "And this is the most important part. You will go to your lawyer. Tonight. You will sign a full, binding, and irrevocable confession, detailing your entire criminal enterprise. The smuggling, the partners, the debt, and the part about locking me in my home. Attempted murder, I believe they call it." "A confession?" Talia shrieked. You're turning us in. You'd send your own son to prison?" Oh, no, Talia, I said, a cold, sharp smile playing on my lips. I'm not. You are. You're going to give me that confession. It is my insurance. It is the real mistake in the basement. It will not be sent to the police. It will be sent to my new lawyer. And it will be held. It will be held for the rest of your lives. What for? Darius whispered. As a guarantee, I said. Because you are going to pay. You are not going to jail, Darius. You are going to get a job. A real one. And your paycheck, all of your paychecks, and Talia's paychecks, from now on, they go into my account. You will pay me back for the emotional distress. You will pay me back for every moment I spent in this house, hungry and afraid. You will pay me back, for my pot roasts. You will finance my new life. Your debt is not to those criminals. Your debt is to me. And I will collect, every month, for the rest of your life. Or, this confession hits the DA's desk. That is my price. It was a perfect, beautiful, inescapable cage. I wasn't just taking their money. I was taking their future. I was giving them the life sentence they had tried to give me. Now, I said, pocketing Darius's phone. Go make the call to your partners. We have a meeting to attend. And I'm going to need you to pick up some food on the way. I'm starving. The meeting was not set in a dark alley. It was set in the sterile, glass-walled conference room of a 24-hour corporate law office, a place of neutral, expensive silence. My new lawyer, a woman so sharp she could have cut glass, had arranged it. I sat at the head of the table. I was no longer the starving, frightened prisoner. I was Dr. Josephine Hayes, a high-level consultant, and I had just enjoyed a very expensive steak, paid for by my son's credit card. Darius and Talia sat on one side of the table, flanked by their terrified, low-budget lawyer. They were pale, trembling, and utterly broken. They had already signed the confession. It was a masterpiece of self-incrimination, detailing everything from the illegal pharmaceutical storage to the attempted murder of his mother. That document was now in my lawyer's secure vault, a permanent sword of Damocles hanging over their heads. At 10 p.m. on the dot, the doors opened. 2 people entered. They were not the thugs Darius and Talia had probably envisioned. They were a man and a woman in impeccably tailored suits, exuding an aura of cold, corporate power. This was Talia's family. This was the source of the debt. Dr. Hayes, the woman said, her voice smooth. She did not introduce herself. She didn't need to. She looked at me, then at the 2 pathetic figures of my son and his wife. We were told there was an inventory issue. A complication. There is no issue, I said, my voice calm. I gestured to the 2 trembling idiots. There is only incompetence. You left a multi-million-dollar, high-volatility, temperature-sensitive chemical inventory in the hands of amateurs. I leaned forward. They stored it in a non-ventilated, non-climate-controlled locker. They had neurotoxins sweating next to nootropics. They created a bomb. And then, in a spectacular display of tactical genius, they locked the only person on the premises who knows how to handle it, a senior compounding pharmacist, in the house with it. The man and woman looked at Darius with a gaze so cold it was arctic. Darius seemed to shrink, to physically become smaller in his chair. And then, I continued, they tried to starve me into giving them my house. A house I had already secured. So, yes. You have a complication. Your entire supply chain is compromised by these 2 fools. Your debt is worthless because the people who owe it are not just broke, they are a liability. They are walking, talking disasters. So what is this? The man asked, his first time speaking. A shakedown? You want money to keep quiet? A shakedown? I almost laughed. Sir, I just liquidated my own assets for a sum that would make your eyes water. I do not want money. I have money. What I want is peace. And a new business arrangement. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Here are my terms. You will find them quite simple. The woman read the paper. Her eyebrow rose, just slightly. Term 1, I narrated. The debt owed by Darius and Talia Hayes is cancelled. It is erased. You will write it off, and you will sever all contact with them, permanently. Darius and Talia looked up, a flicker of desperate hope in their eyes. Term 2, I said. In exchange, I will not go to the authorities. I will not destroy your product. I will, in fact, use my expertise to properly stabilize, catalog, and secure your current inventory. I will even ensure its safe transfer to a more appropriate storage facility. My house is no longer for sale, it is now a very secure, and very expensive, vault. The woman looked at me, a glimmer of respect in her cold eyes. And in exchange for this, professional courtesy? In exchange, I said, Darius and Talia are mine. Their debt is transferred to me. They will spend the rest of their working lives paying me back. You, on the other hand, get your product back, your supply chain secured, and your incompetent, high-risk loose ends tied up. By me. You will never hear from any of us again. It was a brilliant, private victory. I was giving them exactly what they wanted. I was cleaning up their mess. I was taking the two people who could identify them out of their hands and locking them in a new, financial prison of my own design. I was removing the liability, and all they had to do was walk away. The woman looked at the man. He nodded once. This is acceptable, she said. She stood up. My logistics team will be in contact with your lawyer to arrange the transfer. It was a pleasure doing business with you, Dr. Hayes. They turned and walked out, not even sparing a glance for Talia or Darius. The room was silent. Talia was crying, silent, hiccuping tears. Darius was just empty. He had traded one prison for another. What now? He whispered. Now? I said, standing up and straightening my jacket. Now, you get a second job. And you learn how to make pot roast. Because your mother's dinner is no longer free. My legacy was not a public foundation. It was a quiet, profound, and deeply personal act of justice. I sold the empty house. The stain of what had happened there was too much. I moved into the penthouse suite at the Grand, the one I had fled to. I made it my new home. It was bright, it was clean, and it was filled with new furniture. My life, which had shrunk to the four walls of a suburban house, suddenly expanded. I had my pension. I had the massive influx of cash from the liquidation of my assets. And every month, on the 1st, I received 2 more direct deposits. One from a mid-level manager at a logistics firm. The other from a frantic, overworked salesperson at a marketing agency. My son and daughter-in-law were, for the first time in their lives, working. They were drowning in their new, middle-class lives, trapped in a small apartment. Their entire salaries, all except a court-mandated minimum living stipend, were funneled directly to me. Their debt was astronomical. They would never, ever be free of it. I used their money. I used it to travel. I saw the libraries of Alexandria. I walked the halls of the Uffizi. I reconnected with old colleagues. I funded the research of promising young pharmacists, the kind of scientists I knew would heal the world, not poison it. I found my peace, not in the quiet of a home I was forced to maintain, but in the freedom I had seized. My son had locked me in a house to rot, intending to steal my future. Instead, he had only guaranteed his own servitude. And he had, in the ultimate irony, financed my glorious, new, and truly independent life. What this story teaches us is that you should never underestimate a mother. And you should especially never underestimate a pharmacist. We know exactly what it takes to create a poison, and we know exactly how to administer the antidote. If you were inspired by Josephine's incredible comeback, do me a favor and hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we all deserve to see the underestimated finally win. We'll see you in the next one.